Everyone. My name's Paul Pike. I come from a world where basically we put cities into big fields. It's probably a way of describing it. Apart from contending with weather and other incalcitrant traders, particularly ice cream salesmen, my world is basically a temporary world, but it's grown considerably over the years that I've been involved. I came out of university, accidentally went into the music business in merchandising and sponsorship. Been involved in major tours around the world with big artists, put on events around the world. I worked with Bob Geldof at Live Aid. Here in Berlin in 1990, we did a 200,000 event with Roger Waters when the wall came down on no man's land. But ultimately, the way that the whole payments industry has worked, the payments solution has worked in our industry has been a bit chaotic, but I'll work through that. So my talk essentially is going to be in three parts: background, where we are now, and where we're heading to in the future. I talked about weather, and I do have to contend with weather because obviously it's a major factor, and we have a very short time to put a major infrastructure into big festivals. So somewhere like the Isle of Wight or Reading, Creamfields and Leeds all in one weekend, we could have something like 3,500 terminals out all in one period of 4 days. But traditionally, we've moved from the old world, which is a perception of festivals as basically hippies, mud and queues, into something which is completely different now. When you look at some of the major events we have, Isle of Wight or Glastonbury, it's the glamping packages that sell first. They're the ones that go first, and they're not cheap. You can spend up to about £20,000 at Glastonbury for a running water chalet. You can spend, £5,000 on a package at some of the other fests just for a VIP experience. And we're not even into the sort of Formula One and the other events. And we're now in a situation as well where people like Hicks or celebrity chefs are coming into our industry and putting up proper restaurants within the field itself. So Wilderness, for instance, which is the Hicks one there, they have an area called the Sanctuary, where literally it's all about Pilates, yoga. You can lay around having gongs beaten to you. One of my guys called it the field of nonsense, but that's another story. All of these things are part and parcel now of festivals. And of course, one of the main characteristics we have is that we have a captive market. They're in that space for 4 days, and I'll explain a bit about what we haven't done with them and what we hope to be potentially doing with them. It's a big market. It's a market in bloom. If you look at all the figures now in terms of ticket sales, they're going very well. We have situations even in the independent sector where one of my particular clients was expecting to have to do quite a bit of promotion now for this year. It's a 20,000 festival. They've already pretty well sold out. People like Boardmasters sold out in 10 minutes. That's a pretty young festival for those who don't know. Obviously, my perspective is particularly in UK, but I have worked a lot in Europe, and my intention is to try and migrate this into Europe as well. But ultimately, the journey of cash has been an interesting one. I started working with MasterCard with Terry Berg in 2010. We wrote a report about the penetration of the festival market and its size. Obviously, at that time, it was pretty well all cash. And having worked in merchandising for many years, cash was my enemy. It's a nightmare, reconciling sales, reporting, security, paying for banking, etc. It was a complete nightmare. But between 2010 and 2015, the cost of putting an EMV chip into a wristband was very expensive. It was too expensive for the market. It needed people like Barclaycard who used it as a promotion, or obviously MasterCard when they were looking to develop market, to actually support it. But then, of course, along came contactless. And contactless started our journey because from there we've moved into TfL now accepting cards in London from 2019. That was the game changer. And then the big marketing help that we've had has been COVID, perversely, because COVID has now determined that everyone's got a bank account. Everyone wants to pay by by card, sorry. So post-COVID, in 2021, after we'd done 2 tests, we found that the take-up of anyone without a bank account was extremely low. I think it was like 1%. And after that, when we did the test at Sefton Park, literally, Live Nation said, right, we want to go cashless across all of our festivals. Not in 21, it was pretty well 2/3, but last year, all of their festivals in the UK were completely cashless. And I mean, even including people like Fairgrounds, you know, who are the kind of the difficult market. As I mentioned, ice cream sellers who are our nightmare. Food traders, bars, etc. And if you think about it, some of these festivals, we have bars of 150 metres with literally 130 people selling across that area. But our big problem, so that's the background, the big problem we have is that our market, our business is completely fragmented. Nothing talks to anything else. Ticketing, event apps, on-site consumption, none of this technology talks to each other. The concentration of technology has always been artists and production. It hasn't been on the consumer. Of course, now we're moving into a situation where we want to join the dots. And the answer is, for a seamless experience, is to literally join the dots. Because if we can extend the ticket value beyond the event, if we can start, and Dave Birch brought up a good point yesterday about one of the best user cases for NFTs is in the metaverse with ticketing. And it is, because ticketing to different types of events, you could use the same ticket to have a meet and greet with an artist when they're on tour. All of these sort of areas are starting to evolve. But at the same time, the one thing we do not do, and the one thing that event owners do not have at their disposal, is an understanding of who's walking through their door. The problem is that, and I have one particular client who said to me, I've got 7 million people walking through my estate every year in festivals and in fixed venues. I don't know a single one of them. And you think about that, the lack of revenue generation from the point of view of their getting the best value out of their estate is quite frightening. So this is where ultimately now we have the potential to move forward and start to join the dots, as I say there. And ultimately, it's quite straightforward. We want to be in contact with people before the event, during the event, and after the event. And when you look at the way brands operate at festivals, even the big brands like Cinch, who spend a fortune in brand awareness and so forth, there's no direct connection with the audience walking through the door. I mean, I did a promotion with Philips, I don't know, in the 80s with Dire Straits. The only way we could literally the only way, there weren't any screens or anything then, was to have leaflets at the door. And even now, you have situations where brands like, I don't know, Old Moat Cider at the Isle of Wight, they spend a fortune on a stage, DJs, VIP area. They've got a link with World Wildlife Fund. 4,000 people probably standing outside that site for 4 days. And if you changed Old Moat Cider, I don't know, to Magnum, would the punters really bother? And you've got Old Moat Cider and other brands using people with clipboards getting email addresses directly. We now have the opportunity to communicate with them, and surely Old Moat Cider would want to have people going from the event into a consumption of their product after the event. It's pretty straightforward. We don't do that at the moment. So the 3 areas, pre, during, and post, are what we want to join up, if you like, into a seamless event. looking to the future, clearly, smartphone is a major vehicle now that we can use to promote to the individual. Sorry, I actually dropped that slide out. But, what do guests want to do at the venue? Well, clearly they want to do all sorts of things. They're there for 4 days. So at the moment, they camp, they move around, they see the band they want to see or the acts they want to see, they eat, they drink, they party at night maybe, etc. What we want to be able to do is to actually drive traffic and make the whole experience a much more enjoyable experience. And so the mobile phone now gives us a direct communication channel with every single person walking through that door. And why don't we use it? This is what we're moving into. So when I started thinking about this, I was working with Manchester City Football Club in 2005, I think it was. Even back then, Manchester City Football Club were one of the first UK football clubs to use RFID season tickets. They were pretty brave. They launched straight into it when they moved stadiums. After getting the first sort of couple of months out of the way with security and turnstiles and how people exited and entered the venue, what can we do with 32,000, 35,000 people who we actually know they are? Well, okay, let's join up. Purchase of a season ticket, attendance at the game, and spend in the shop. Very straightforward. Out of that, we identified the top 500 spenders. And what can we do with them? Well, okay, the first thing was send them an email, thanking them, inviting them into the shop, give them an extra discount. Pretty well 90% of them did that within 2 weeks. We then thought, okay, what about a special event? So we organised a kit launch to protect the retail trade. The selling of new kit for the season can't take place till midnight on the Friday night beforehand. So, okay. We have an event in the club shop. We invite the top 500 spenders into the club shop, let them look round the new merchandise for the year until midnight, and then they can buy. And that generated alone something like £80,000 turnover. Now the shop would never have seen that because it would have gone into the retail trade. So these are the kind of the fledgling areas, if you like, of starting to join this technology together and starting to understand what customers really want. So from my point of view now, obviously smartphones are literally a direct communication channel. We can target people because if we reward them and we have an exchange of information with them and value information, then we can actually understand what they want. Clearly, if someone's not interested in betting, you're not about to send them information on betting. It's pretty obvious. But that top line there was something that it stayed in my mind from the Tesco club card. Right from the word go, Tesco founded that whole club card on understanding what you buy. If you take that principle into my world, the live world, even though it's temporary, surely we can make that work. We obviously can give customers high value in terms of tailored offers. We can deliver revenue to the event, and ultimately that revenue is left on the table. As I say, that gap in the middle between particularly events and brands, for a start, it goes to activation agencies at the moment. Surely the event operators can operate in that space. I know it's difficult with independents because they are pretty well three-man bands, let's say. They don't have the big infrastructure of, say, a Live Nation. But that's where people like myself can come in. And so ultimately, what's the future for event payment? As part of that infrastructure, we see it as a key area. Transaction speeds are obviously massively important because if you've got a 150-metre bar, you've got 120, 30 people serving, and couple of thousand people waiting for a drink, you can't have a situation where you're taking longer to process each payment. So that's where contactless has been very quick. So anything that we can do to move that forward is a major help. Clearly, we're talking new technologies. I know David's talked about what MasterCard are doing. There's a company on the horizon called Listener who are potentially going to trial with ultrasound payments. All these technologies need to be trialed, because what we're doing now will only take place next year, really, in terms of rollout. Open banking, there's obviously new horizons. Maybe festival currency. Tomorrowland, one of the most successful festivals in Europe, has its own currency, Pearl. That's based on the euro, so they can set the value of that. But everything you do in that festival is based on the Pearl. So thanks very much. My mantra, if you like, has been that we've moved away from cash. That's gone. You know, we're not even talking 5 years. In my world, it's pretty well gone. We're now moving into the digital era, and what can we do to actually make people enjoy the festival and get more out of it, whilst delivering value and revenue to brands and event owners. Thank you very much.